Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2018 Ram 1500, we're going to be showing you how to install the DeeZee oval tube steps with the installation kit. But before we do that, why don't we check them out and make sure that this is something that's going to work for you. So when it comes to Nerf bars or running boards, whatever you might call them, it's kind of tricky to actually pick a set out. There's just so many available. And usually what I'll try to do is find kind of the best of both worlds in terms of the functionality and how they're gonna look. And I think these look pretty good for what they are, but they definitely function well. They have really wide boards, so these are 6 inches in total, and you have a lot of room to get your foot up there and get you in and out of the truck. With that said, there are some other ones that just sit a little bit tighter against the bottom of your truck and things like that. They look a little bit better, but you lose a little bit of that functionality. You know, you have to sacrifice the width of the board. So, you know, kind of pick whichever one best suits your needs or really what you're looking to do. With that said as well, the ones that we have here today that we're showing off, these are black powder coated steel. Good modern appearance. I know that's kind of the thing now. I like it. But if this ain't your style, there's a handful of different other ones available as well. I know there's some stainless ones, aluminum ones, some that are polished, and so on. So you definitely have a few different choices to pick from. But with all that said, let's actually see how these things work. So whenever you're ready to hop up in the truck, you know, with the door open, you can see there's quite a bit of space there. And even with a big work boot on, I mean, your foot can kind of get underneath the truck even. So, you know, you kind of gain an extra inch or so just like that anyway. But so make it real easy to get in and out, and just give you a better footprint, you know, keep you a little bit safer whenever you're climbing in and out of your truck. So I know I've seen a bunch of running boards that look tough, but then you stand on them and they flex and they feel like they're going to break out from underneath your feet. And these are pretty solid actually. So if I climb up here, I mean, I'm jumping around pretty good. They're moving a little bit, but barely anything. I'm moving the truck more than the running board. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm probably 185 pounds. So pretty impressive. With that said though, these are going to have a maximum weight capacity of 350 pounds. So one of the questions that came through my head as soon as I put these on, and I'm sure a lot of other people are wondering too, is they do hang down a little bit, so you are going to lose some ground clearance. And if that's important to you, we'll grab some measurements, figure that out. If not, really doesn't make a difference. So what I'll do here is grab my tape, and I'm just going to measure from the edge of the rocker panel there on my truck. And so that's about 14.5 inches. And then we'll measure to the bottom of our Nerf bar here, running board. And that's about 11 inches. So what is that? About a 3.5 inch difference. So you are going to lose a little bit of ground clearance if you do decide to put these on your truck. Something that I did notice, you know, whenever the tires are straight, they're somewhat close to the end of the running board here. I mean, you got plenty of room, but just something that I was thinking about. You know, a lot of guys put bigger tires on their trucks and lift them and everything else like that. So, you know, just something to think about. This board could be pushed back a little bit more, but not a crazy amount. If you did it all the way back here, I think it might just kind of start to look funny towards the back. So I kind of found that happy medium and split the difference. But with that said, you know, in case you're wondering, so in this position here, with this size tire, it's a 275 60/20. From the end of the tire, they look like about full tread too. Maybe a little less, but from the end of the tread to the end of the running board is probably about 1.75 inches. So I just wanted to give you a reference. I did turn the wheels in and out, and you know, this is a spot that's definitely closest. Whenever you start to turn it in and out, it clears everything no problem, and you have more than enough space. One pointer that I do want to give is make sure what type of cab you have. We see this mistake a lot, and that's in terms of a regular cab, a crew cab, a quad cab. You know, it seems like those terms are just kind of used interchangeably, but there is a difference there. So make sure you have the right cab selected in our fit guide. That way you make sure you get the right running boards, regardless if you go with these or a different type. It's something to really pay attention to, make sure you get the stuff that you need. With that said too, pay attention. A lot of times there's full length boards, so running boards that'll come all the way back here almost so you can have access to the bed. If that's what you're looking for, awesome. If not though, you don't want to be upset if you pick some running boards up and then those show up. You might not like how they look or whatever the case may be. So something that I see happen a lot when it comes to choosing steps or running boards, and something just to pay attention to. So at the end of the day, nice set of running boards. You know, they're gonna get the job done and look pretty good. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. The worst part is just trying to figure out what pieces go where. That is the most time consuming, at least in my opinion. But if you hang around, watch a video, I'll figure a lot of that out, and hopefully it'll make it a little bit easier on you. But with all that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and put one on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here on the side of our truck, working right underneath it, and we're going to have a total of 3 brackets that we're going to be using. So one up front, one here towards the middle, and then one here towards the back of our cab. And what I like to do is set our brackets out just so we can have everything laid out. It makes a little more sense. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together almost. There's so many different brackets and things. So we'll go over that now. The one here at the back of the truck. So this is how the bracket's roughly going to sit. And you can see where the running board's going to lay, how we have a bend in the bracket. So the one in the back of the truck, this bend is going to face forward or towards the front. The one in the middle is going to set something like this. And so this part of the bracket is going to face towards the back of the truck. And then in the very front, this attachment, bracket's going to sit like this. So the bend is going to face towards the back of the truck. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and just work on getting the front one set up first. So at the front, on the back side, we're going to have 2 factory weld nuts here, and these bolts are going to thread into them. So once we're holding our bracket up, bolts are going to go through the bracket and thread into those holes. Now, a lot of times, these are probably going to have some junk in there, maybe some rust built up and things like that. So I suggest spraying them out with some penetrating oil, and then taking a cleaner brush, something like this, and cleaning those threads out. And what I suggest doing is taking the bolt and making sure that it actually threads in easily. If your truck's pretty clean underneath, chances are pretty good it will, but for whatever reason you can't get them really clean and get that bolt to go in, you may have to use what's called a tap, which is something like this. And what happens is when you work this in, it recuts those threads and makes them like brand new again pretty much. So you know, every truck's going to be a little different, but if you're struggling with that there, this may be something you need to think about. With that said though, we're going to take our front bracket, 2 holes are going to line up with the weld nuts. We'll take our bolts and get it started. We're just going to get them hand tight for now. Now we can work on our support bracket. So these brackets, these 2 holes are going to line up with the 2 factory holes there in the pinch weld. And the flat side of this bracket, the holes there are going to line up with the holes in the bracket we just put on. So pay attention, these are all, you know, there's 2 different styles of the brackets. Make sure you got the right one. So it's going to sit something like this. And for these 2 holes from the outside in, you're going to take a carriage bolt, put that through, another carriage bolt, that'll kind of hold it in place. Then on the back side, those carriage bolts, you can take a flat washer and a nut. So I'll get that started. And same hardware combo for our other carriage bolt. And all the hardware will be hand tight, all of it until it's all in place. Once everything's in place, we'll come back and snug everything down and whatnot, just to make sure everything's aligned and everything else. So get that close. So for these two holes, you're just going to take 2 of these bolts, feed them through both of the brackets, and then you take a flange nut and get those started hand tight. So this bracket's over here pretty much set up, so now we can go ahead and move on to the other attachment points. So here is our middle attachment point. Now we're going to be installing these Nutserts. I already put these in here. I'll show you how to do it on the far back attachment point, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a visual of what these are going to look like after we put them in. So with that said, you kind of see what we have to work with. Let's go ahead and move to the rear attachment point, the one close to the back of the truck, and put one of these in. So here's what those holes are going to look like that we need to put these Nutserts in. So these are just going to sit in there, and there's a tool that we're going to use to cinch them down and make them pretty much permanent. With that said, what you're going to do is take this tool they give you. So it's a bolt with a nut and a couple of washers, and there's also a ball bearing thing here. The first one I did, this thing pretty much just broke apart into pieces. If that happens to you, not really a big deal. All I've been doing, or all we need to do, is just take both the washers, and that'll still do the trick. So you're going to take the tool, keep the nut on it, and I think part of the problem is instructions tell you to take the nut off, and I think that's what broke the bearing. So this method seems to work a little bit better anyway, but take the Nutsert and put that onto the bolt. You know, make sure the threads of the bolt kind of punch through the back side a little ways. Then you're going to take this, put it in there as a unit. You can use an Allen key. I believe it's a 6mm to hold the head. And then take your wrench and you're going to tighten this nut down. What's happening here is that bolt is wanting to pull that Nutsert out, and it's cinching it to our frame. So you're going to tighten it a few times, and you can kind of feel once it starts to get tight. So there's a little bit of movement left. I'm just going to give it another turn or so until that feels solid. And then once it is solid, just back off the nut and unscrew our tool. And that's how you get those in there. So with it like that, that thing is solid and not going anywhere. So I'll go ahead and repeat that same process for this one as well. So now that we have all of our Nutserts in, we can get all our brackets going. So we're back at the middle now, the middle attachment point of our truck. Take your bracket and your bolt. So these will thread into those Nutserts. Get them going hand tight, and then it's pretty much the same deal for all of them. You just have to pay attention to, you know, your brackets. Make sure they're in the right spot and you're using the right ones. So for this one, you know, that's how the bracket's going to sit. So pretty much the same deal. We'll get these started. And for the top ones, all the attachment points are already going to have those holes there in the pinch weld, so nothing too different there. Same hardware combination and everything else. So once I get this one done, I'll simply just repeat this same process for the bracket and the rear. So with all of our brackets loosely in place, now we can actually take the running board, and I'm just going to set this up roughly in the area that it's going to be setting. And if we flip it over on the back side here, we're gonna have some little cutouts, and what we're gonna do is take these seals here. These will just snap in and have some threads in it so we can run a bolt through there. And I'm just gonna get it roughly in place where it's gonna line up with their bracket. So those just slide in. And as long as we're pretty close, everything should go together pretty smooth. But with that said, and this front part done, I'll go ahead and do the same thing for our other two attachment points. So with all those roughly in place, now we can grab the running board and we're gonna set that on up onto the brackets. And in that bag, where the clips came with, they're gonna come with some bolts just like this. And we're just gonna get them started for now. Hand tight on all of them. If they don't line up, not a big deal. These things do slide, so you can move it around where you need it to go and get it started. So once you have the running board up and everything's loosely installed, just verify that it's in the correct position that you want it. Don't have a ton of adjustability, but you do have some. In our case, we just have the front end kind of about in line with the wheel well, so I think we'll be in good shape there. But with that said, now what we can do is grab some tools and start tightening all the hardware down. I like to start with the middle attachment point and work our way out. Whether it makes a difference or not, I'm not sure, but that's what I've had best luck with in the past. We're first going to tighten up the bolts up here that actually go into the body of our vehicle. So grab a 13 millimeter, tighten those up, and then we're going to tighten these bolts, the carriage bolts. So we'll use a 7/16 to do that. And then we can move on to these. So I'll use a 13 millimeter wrench and socket, snug these up. I do the same thing for our other two attachment points. So once all the brackets are tight, that leaves us with the bolts that are actually holding the running board onto the bracket. So don't forget to come back with a 13 millimeter and tighten all those down as well. So once the one side is complete, you're simply just going to repeat that same process over here on the other side of our truck to get this running board installed as well. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the DeeZee oval tube steps on our 2018 Ram 1500.